Okay, I've been thinking about doing this video in a really long time, but given the number of notebooks that are coming into the studio, I just never got the chance to sort of compile my thoughts and share my experience using the Blade 15 Advanced from Razer for more than a year. Now, I do need to be very transparent here for a sec. Razer is a channel partner, but this video is not sponsored by any means. They're not paying us a single dime to talk about this laptop. I just wanted to share my thoughts, some of the issues that I had with the 15 Advanced or just Blade notebooks in general in the past, and then how Razer has addressed some of them over the course of, say, a year or so. So let's talk about that right after this.
Say hello to proper airflow with Be Quiet Purebase 500DX, a compact mid-tower with a mesh front panel and three 140mm PureWings 2 fans that are silent and capable. Enjoy tasteful ARGB illumination, a Type-C port, and an easy case to work in. Check it out below.
Okay, so I think it's important for me to set the stage for you guys as to what I've been using for the past 10 years or so. My very first laptop was an HP G60. When I first moved to Canada about 10 years ago, I needed a laptop to get through high school, and so after researching, my mom and I went to Future Shop, which was an electronics store here in Canada back then, but now it's owned by Best Buy. We finally pulled the trigger on it, and I enjoyed using that laptop. It wasn't a gaming powerhouse, but it was able to get me through high school just fine. And then I upgraded to the XPS 15 L502X. It was a legendary machine that came with a quad-core processor and a discrete graphics card. I remember editing my very first short film on that machine. I made a few upgrades as well on the inside. Fast forward a few years later, and I started working for Hardware Canucks, and I was just introduced to this whole new realm of the PC master race, where I got to build desktop PCs. I built my very first desktop PC on the channel, and I just started using desktops ever since then, just because of the raw horsepower that it was able to deliver compared to a laptop. So that was fascinating. But then I had to go to shows like CES and Computex, so I ended up using a Eurocom laptop. It's a Canadian brand, but it had the specs to back up the workflow that I used to do, but it wasn't the best laptop. It didn't have the greatest build quality, and it just felt cheap, but it had the power and it got the job done. And then I switched over to my very first Mac. That's right, I bought myself a 13-inch MacBook Pro, one of those models that had ports, like actual ports, and I loved it. The display was great, the trackpad was amazing, the keyboard was awesome. The keyboard actually worked. I took it to shows with me. Unfortunately, it didn't have the performance that I needed to because it was a 13-inch MacBook Pro, didn't come with a discrete graphics card, and so I was using Premiere at the time and it wasn't optimized for that laptop, so I had to sacrifice on rendering times and all that stuff. But the battery life, the portability, that was the best part about that machine. And then Razer hooked us up with one of their first Blade gaming laptops. Remember the one that came with a 14-inch display and a discrete graphics card? In this case, it was a GTX 1060. To me, it was just a perfect upgrade coming from my MacBook Pro 13-inch because I wasn't losing a lot in terms of form factor and size, but it had its own issues. For instance, it ran hot, it was too loud, battery life wasn't that great, and a lot of users were reporting battery bulging issues, although I didn't encounter any of them, but it was pretty common among a lot of users. And Razer's customer support was pretty terrible back then, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were vocal about that, especially when it was a common issue. Fast forward a few years later, and Razer comes up with the Blade 15 series. And I got myself the Blade 15 base model. It was a welcoming upgrade over the previous generation because it came with a bigger display. The design was refined a little bit. The boxy look is still pretty reminiscent within current generation. And I was able to upgrade the memory. And it also came with a secondary hard drive slot, which I was able to populate with an SSD. So overall, I really enjoyed my time using that machine for about a month until I started experiencing this, and this, and this. Seriously, the number of BSODs both myself and Dimitri encountered on our Blades were really frustrating. I actually remember a time during Computex, I wasn't able to edit a video properly on my Blade 15 base model because 10 minutes later, it BSODs, I had to restart, edit a video. I wasn't able to edit a video properly, and then it just crashes on me again and again and again. It was really, I was almost to a point where I wanted to throw that laptop out the window, but yeah, it really, we were all pretty pissed at Razer at the time. And We had to, I mean, I actually remember just going out to the show floor and seeing if we can find another competitor from Asus or Gigabyte to see if they had a spare sample for us to use temporarily to get work done. It was really that bad, guys. In fact, that whole thing made it into a vlog, so I'll make sure to leave a link down below if you're interested in checking that out. Fortunately, we were having conversations with Razer in parallel to really find out the culprit of these crashes and BSODs. I ended up replacing my base model with the advanced model that I have right over here, this exact same unit, and it just kept happening. BSODs just kept happening over and over again, so I honestly was at the peak of giving up and switching entirely to a different notebook until we diagnosed and we narrowed down the issue to Razer Synapse. Basically, Synapse had trouble communicating with NVIDIA Studio drivers, and so that caused the machine to crash. So Razer rolled out an update, and magically everything worked. I did not experience, and I still haven't experienced a BSOD on this machine even a year later, which is just software update. What do you know? Now, there are certain things that I don't like about this laptop. The first being the keyboard. The travel distance is very short. I feel like the competition has better offerings than this, notably the ZenBook 15 from Asus, XPS 15 from Dell. Heck, even the Tough A15 from Asus is better than this in terms of feedback. With that being said, I love the LED backlighting on the Blade. Razer has just nailed it on this model. There's very little spill around the keys and it gets really bright, so that's awesome. I also wished the screen got brighter because this 2019 model comes with a 240Hz display and it only goes as far as 350 nits, so it's perfect for indoor use, but as soon as you take it outdoors, it gets a bit challenging to see things, and yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. Now, I am aware that the newer models come with a faster 300Hz refresh rate. Honestly, I just think that's marketing bluff. I don't think you necessarily need 300Hz unless if you're an esports player, but it just doesn't really mean anything to me personally. But with that being said, I love how color accurate this display is. I can comfortably edit photos using Lightroom and Photoshop and edit videos comfortably on DaVinci Resolve. This is a fantastic panel. I have absolutely no complaints when it comes to color accuracy. Another thing I need to point out is that when I use this thing in battery mode, performance takes a huge hit. Clock speeds don't boost higher. I've seen them go below 1 GHz, and with NVIDIA's Maximus technology, the discrete graphics card is disabled, and so when you're doing casual stuff, it doesn't really kick in. It uses the integrated GPU. I feel like it treats itself as an ultrabook to yield higher or longer battery life. Now, obviously, if you're looking to get the highest performance on any Windows machine, you have to have it plugged in, which is exactly what I did on this laptop. But I am super annoyed by the power connector on this machine. For some reason, Razer uses this thick braided cable, which is just really hard to organize. And especially if you have it plugged in the wrong direction, it completely blocks that extra USB port, which, I mean, whoever designed the power cable really needs to go back to the drawing board and fix that because it is pretty annoying. Now, in terms of performance, I'm actually pretty happy with it, guys. It's not the fastest gaming laptop out there, and the 9750H is a peasant compared to the Ryzen CPUs that are available in the market right now, and I'm hoping Razer will offer options sooner than later because everyone seems to be begging for it these days. One thing that you'll notice is that the scores that I'm getting now are lower compared to what I had before, and the reason for that is I actually ran these benchmarks with some of the background applications that I use on a regular basis. So that includes my antivirus program. There is, Adobe Creative Cloud and a few other applications as well, including my wireless mouse software as well. So there's a lot of things happening in the background, which is why you're seeing those lower scores. The gaming performance is also pretty good. Is it the fastest out there? Not really, but considering the form factor, the acoustics, and Razer's efficient vapor chamber cooling system, it's good. Port selection is good on this machine. Even though it's a 2019 model, Razer has equipped it with USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, which is the 10 gigabits per second protocol. And that's awesome because a lot of the other notebook manufacturers, even in 2020, failed to implement all of the USB ports with that standard. You probably might only get one or two, but in this case, all these USB ports are 3.2 Gen 2, and it also comes with a Wi-Fi 6 module. So I guess it's still worth it in 2020. The lack of an SD card reader is a bummer, but the 2020 models do come with one, so that's awesome. Battery life is good, but not great. I'm only getting roughly 5 hours of use when I'm doing some casual stuff like browsing the web or writing out a script. And if I switch over to something more heavy, I can only squeeze about an hour worth of use, which is respectable, but it's not the greatest compared to some of the AMD offerings that are available in the market right now. The last thing that I want to talk about is the design and build quality, because Razer just nails it in that department. The unibody design is unlike anything that you can find with the competition right now. And I have yet to find a laptop that can sort of compete with the standard that Razer has sort of set, because you're getting a robust hinge mechanism, which is nice and solid. The keyboard layout is awesome. The trackpad is great. I mean, it just works. That's the beauty of this machine, which is why I keep coming back to it. Not to mention, the advanced cooling system inside does a relatively good job cooling the 2080 Max-Q GPU and the Core i7 processor. I mean, it doesn't necessarily give you the fastest performance, but it's overall a balanced, high-performance, portable machine. Now, Razer, if you're watching this video, I would like you guys to improve on a few things with your Blade 15 notebooks. First and foremost, if you can implement a brighter screen with high refresh rate and better color accuracy, that would be awesome. A bigger battery would be highly appreciated, because if you look at the competition, MSI is coming out with 99.9 watt-hour batteries on their slim chassis. So I'm sure you can come up with something that can compete with those standards. If you can also improve the speakers, that would be great. They're good, but I mean, maybe perhaps add a woofer at the bottom to enrich the bass response. And I think that would be a solid sort of experience. And also perhaps look into AMD for your next revision as an option, because the Ryzen chips are definitely faster and the numbers really do speak for themselves. Intel does have a lot of catching up to do, and those chips are also pretty power efficient as well. So, figure something out with AMD, get something sorted, and then we'll start talking. Finally, and this is the most important one, I like to see the customer support system sort of just get revamped a little bit, because a lot of you guys have been vocal about Razer's customer support, and for the most part it has been negative, especially when you look at issues from previous designs, but they worked hard since the 2019 models to improve that perception. For example, there are some pretty critical videos out there with some legitimate concerns about internal build quality and poor resolutions by Razer's technical team. Keep in mind that I've had very few issues, but that's based on a single model. So on that note, thank you so much for watching, guys. And if you are an existing Blade 15 owner, I want to know your experience using that machine and if it somewhat reflected my experience as well. I'll be hanging out in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.